Hi everybody. Hey, welcome to my first Loom video. So we are going to be using this as a tool to be able to offer like on-demand teaching and on-demand training for each one of our agents, whether you be new or seasoned or whatever. And so we're going to start putting together this library of forms and documents for all three states, Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota, and you'll be able to access those at any point in time. If you're putting a deal together and you need to just have a quick refresher, you can look through, or you can choose to go through that the whole thing at once if you want to or whatever. So the first thing we're going to start off with is the agency policy disclosure and acknowledgement. So this is going to be from the Iowa listing package and the Iowa sale packet. So remember, the agency policy disclosure is going to be the same whether it be for a buyer or seller. And remember that agency needs to be discussed upon the first substantive contact with a potential client. And remember, this is not a contract, this is informational only. So and so as we're walking through this, I want to teach you to be very understanding of what agency is, and also how to be able to explain that to a client. So remember, agency is really the representation of an agent for a client. And remember, we are a fiduciary. In other words, we're looking out for the best interest of our clients at all times. And so this is kind of the first step to that, from them becoming moving from a customer to an actual client. So again, this first form is agency policy disclosure and acknowledgement. And again, this is required to be discussed at the first substantive contact. So if you're at an open house or something like that, you don't have to do that. However, if you do, if you start talking after the open house and you start sharing confidential information like job history, financial things like that, that is substantive contact. So that's when you need to explain this to them. And again, remember, you just need to tell them it's not a contract, and so they don't need to get worried that you're trying to bind them into something. So how this works is, so we've got, so the Iowa one is a two-page document, and it starts off by talking about the types of agency representation that our brokerage offers. And so each one of these is going to be marked. So we do offer single seller agency, single buyer agency, appointed agency, and consensual dual agency. And so, and again, the way I describe this is, if you're talking to whether it's a buyer or a seller, I tell them that, hey, agency sets our relationship. It just says that how I'm going to be representing you within the real estate transaction. And I would say we have three types of agency: single seller agency, single buyer agency, and then dual agency. And in single seller agency, that means you're representing the listing client, and you represent them 100%. And then buyer agency, you explain to them that you are representing them as a buyer, and you represent them 100%, and they do become a client at that point. And then dual agency is where the same agent represents both the buyer and the seller. And in Iowa, we call it consensual dual agency, because all parties have to give consent for that relationship to occur. And then this initial portion down here talks about if, let's say, if you're doing a for sale by owner, and they are going to be, they're only going to be represented by themselves, and there is no written agency relationships there. This will be self-representation, and so they'll initial there, and that just says that, hey, they know that they're going to be self-represented. So. And then, so as we go through here, it talks about duties of a licensee. Again, provide brokerage services, disclose all material adverse facts and defects, in which, if you know that the house has radon, you have to disclose that as an agent, but also any other personal information that if they are, whatever marital things or financial things, all of that you have to keep completely separate. and undisclosed. So, and again, so on page 2, it continues through all of that, and it just says you understand the basics of this. And so, with that one, I'm gonna go through now and show you exactly how I explain it. I'm just going to use this as a listing client. So on this one, we're going to say, as we pull this out, we just say, this is our agency policy disclosure and acknowledgement. And what this does is this talks about the agency relationships that we offer within our company. And what we do is we offer single seller agency, single buyer agency, and consensual dual agency. And as the seller, me as your agent will be representing you fully as a single seller agent. Now, if anybody else other than myself show up to look at the house and sell the house, then that agent will be representing their buyer under single buyer agency. And so I represent you as the seller's agent, they represent their buyer as the buyer agent, and everyone has full representation. Now, the only time that changes is on consensual dual agency. And what that means is that maybe they came through an open house or called me on a sign or the internet, and at that point in time they decided to write an offer on it, and I will be representing both parties individually. And so consensual means both parties have to give consent, and if that does happen, then we'll talk about it in depth at that time and get your consent to be okay with that dual agency relationship. And then when I say about appointed agency, is that just remember we are a large office at Keller Williams, and everything that we do is private. Nobody has access, none of the other agents have access to my information. Therefore, I am the only one who will be representing you from Keller Williams. So our broker appoints me as your agent, and then any other agent, if any other Keller Williams agent would show up to either buy or sell the property, then they would be represented like this, the single seller, single buyer agency. So I usually don't go into appointed agency in depth too much because they really don't understand it and they really don't care too much. So and again, so then I just say, that's the basics of real estate, and just understand that we're very, very diligent about making sure that you are 100% represented within this transaction. Does that make sense to you? Do you have any questions on agency relationships? And usually they'll say no, and you go ahead and have them sign. And on each one of these, as we go through these form packets, I've got everything highlighted where the sellers sign, where the buyers sign, and then where the agents sign, and everything's highlighted in different colors. So anyway, so that is agency policy disclosure. Hopefully that was clear as mud. Once you get going on these, they actually are pretty easy to paraphrase to the client, and they will actually understand it. So thanks, have a great day.